Welcome to Echoes of Legends. There was a time when these men defined courage, honor, and raw strength on the silver screen. They were the ultimate cowboys, tough guys, and Western icons who ruled cinema for decades, commanding the box office with an unforgettable presence. But when the dust finally settled and the final scene ended, these larger-than-life heroes stepped into absolute silence. Today, they rest in quiet hills, simple country cemeteries, and solitary sanctuaries where almost no one stops to remember them. Before we begin, please take a quick moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel to help us keep these forgotten legacies alive. Now let's step onto this quiet trail as we remember 15 legendary heroes of the Western screen who have found their final, peaceful rest. John Wayne. Overlooking the peaceful blue waters of the Pacific Ocean at Pacific View Memorial Park in Corona del Mar, California, resting on a quiet, sun-drenched hillside, there lies a grave that was kept completely unmarked and hidden for 20 years. This serene sanctuary is the final home of Marion Robert Morrison, universally known to the world as John Wayne, the Duke. The deep stillness surrounding his final home, now marked by a beautiful bronze plaque featuring his own words on life and courage, stands as a solemn monument to a man whose rugged stature, slow drawl, and commanding presence defined the ultimate American hero on the silver screen for over 4 decades. Born Marion Robert Morrison in Winterset, Iowa in 1907, he moved to California as a child and rose to international superstardom after his breakthrough role in John Ford's 1939 classic Stagecoach. He went on to dominate the box office, starring in over 140 films and delivering legendary performances in masterpieces like The Searchers as Ethan Edwards, The Quiet Man, and his Oscar-winning role as the one-eyed Marshal Rooster Cogburn in True Grit. His towering physical presence and his portrayal of strong, principled men became an enduring symbol of American individual strength. But his extraordinary legacy was also defined by his immense personal resilience and courage off-screen. He faced severe, decades-long health challenges, famously surviving a major battle with lung cancer in 1964, which required the removal of his left lung, before facing a final, terminal battle with stomach cancer. In his last film, the 1976 classic, The Shootist, he delivered a deeply moving, poignant performance as an aging, dying gunfighter that mirrored his own real-life struggles. He approached his final months with the same unwavering strength and quiet humility that characterized his life, earning the deep respect of colleagues of all generations. On June 11, 1979, at the UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles, California, John Wayne passed away peacefully of stomach cancer at the age of 72. To protect his family's privacy, he was buried in an unmarked grave on a quiet slope. It was not until 20 years later, in 1999, that a beautiful bronze plaque was placed over his resting place, bearing his iconic quote, "Tomorrow is the most important thing in life. Comes into us at midnight, very clean. It's perfect when it arrives, and it puts itself in our hands. It hopes we've learned something from yesterday." Today, he rests in the quiet peace of Corona del Mar, far from the busy movie sets of his youth, the dusty Western trails of his past, and the physical struggle of his final years. The grand, gentle giant of the Western screen has finally found absolute, tranquil rest. Clint Eastwood. Within the peaceful, scenic coastal community of Carmel by the Sea, California, where he once served as mayor and continues to live in quiet, creative privacy, the memory of a man who brought a rugged power, an intense focus, and an unparalleled artistic range to the screen is preserved in absolute silence. Clint Eastwood, a 4-time Academy Award-winning director, producer, and legendary actor, left behind a monumental legacy that spanned over 60 years, making him one of the most successful and respected figures in the history of global cinema. The calm serenity of his coastal home stands as a monument to a gentleman who chose to use his immense talents to redefine genres, elevate storytelling, and live with a quiet, unwavering integrity. Born Clint Eastwood Jr. in San Francisco, California in 1930, he served in the United States Army before pursuing his passion for acting, rising to fame on the television series Rawhead. He achieved international, enduring superstardom in the 1960s as the enigmatic, poncho-clad man with no name in Sergio Leone's legendary spaghetti western trilogy, Dollars Trilogy, completely rewriting the rules of the western genre. He went on to dominate action cinema as the uncompromising raw detective Harry Callahan in the hit Dirty Harry franchise, delivering some of the most famous, iconic, and highly quoted lines in film history. But his extraordinary legacy was also defined by his brilliant, highly acclaimed work behind the camera. Clint transformed himself into a master director and producer, winning 4 Academy Awards, Best Picture and Best Director twice, for his masterpieces, the revisionist anti-violence western Unfilligan and the sports drama $1 Million Baby. Off-screen, he has lived a deeply independent, disciplined, and private life, directing and producing major feature films well into his 90s with a tireless dedication and a quiet, grounded humility, earning the profound respect of colleagues of all generations. Today, as he lives an honorable life in California, he remains a highly respected and beloved patriarch of the global cinematic community. Far from the busy movie sets of his youth, the roaring crowds of Hollywood, and the intense pressures of the studio system, he continues to direct, share his wisdom, and inspire. The legendary pioneer of the dramatic and Western screen has earned his place among the greats, leaving behind a legacy of power, discipline, and creative passion that continues to inspire actors and filmmakers around the globe. Henry Fonda. Over the vast, peaceful, blue skies of California, where his ashes were scattered and his long creative life came to an end, the memory of an actor who brought a refined intellect, a quiet authority, and a deep moral integrity to the screen is preserved in absolute silence. Henry James Fonda, an Academy Award-winning actor and patriarch of one of Hollywood's most prominent acting dynasties, left behind a monumental legacy that spanned over 5 decades. The calm, endless horizon stands as a solemn monument to a gentleman whose honest, laconic performances defined the very conscience of American cinema, but who faced his own personal complexities with a quiet, private dignity. Born Henry James Fonda in Grand Island, Nebraska in 1905, he studied journalism before finding his true passion in the theater. He rose to international superstardom, becoming the ultimate symbol of quiet American justice. He delivered legendary, complex performances in masterpieces like John Ford's The Grape of Wrath as the iconic Tom Joad, earning an Academy Award nomination, and Wyoming lawman Wyatt Eppert in My Darling Clementine, as well as producing and starring as the logical, determined juror number 8 in the courtroom classic 12 Angry Men. His calm voice, blue eyes, and towering presence defined the moral hero for generations. But behind his honest, upright screen persona lay a deeply complex, emotionally guarded personal life. Henry struggled with an emotionally distant nature, leading to long-standing, troubled relationships with his children, Jane and Peter Fonda. He navigated 5 marriages, including the tragic loss of his wife, Frances, to suicide. Yet he achieved a beautiful late-career artistic triumph, winning the Academy Award for Best Actor for his final film, On Golden Pond, starring alongside his daughter Jane and Katharine Hepburn, a poignant, real-life resolution of their relationship that earned the deep respect of the entire film community. After a long, exceptionally successful, and deeply respected life of 77 years, his journey came to a quiet, natural end. On August 12, 1982, at a hospital in Los Angeles, California, Henry Fonda passed away peacefully of heart failure. Following his strict wishes, no funeral or memorial service was held, and his remains were cremated, with his ashes scattered over his beloved California. Today, he rests in the quiet peace of his memory, far from the busy movie sets, the historic courtroom of 12 Angry Men, and the physical limitations of his final days. The gentle, legendary giant of the silver screen has finally found absolute tranquil rest. Gary Cooper. Within the peaceful, quiet grounds of Sacred Heart Cemetery in Southampton, New York, resting under a massive, rugged natural boulder from the local landscape, there lies a resting place wrapped in absolute, gentle silence. This serene, historic cemetery is the final home of Frank James Cooper, universally known to the world as Gary Cooper, Coop. The deep stillness surrounding his final home, marked simply by his name and the cross carved into the stone, stands as a solemn monument to a man whose tall stature, gentle voice, and laconic delivery defined the strong, silent American hero on the silver screen for over 30 years. Born Frank James Cooper in Helena, Montana in 1901, he grew up on his family's ranch and studied art before embarking on an acting career that would make him a legend. He achieved international, enduring superstardom, winning 2 Academy Awards for Best Actor, first as the heroic World War I soldier in Sergeant York, and later as the isolated, duty-bound Marshal Will Kane in the Western masterpiece High Noon. With his understated acting style and natural grace, Gary Cooper became a cherished symbol of quiet moral strength, starring in classics like The Pride of the Yankees and For Whom the Bell Tolls. But behind his upright, quiet screen persona lay a deeply complex, elegant personal life. He navigated a highly sophisticated, often turbulent Hollywood existence, famed for his dapper fashion sense, his passionate affairs, and his long marriage to his wife, Veronica. Off-screen, he was a deeply quiet man who loved the outdoors, hunting, and photography. He approached his final, terminal battle with cancer with the same unwavering dignity, courage, and quiet strength that characterized his life, famously receiving a touching tribute from his close friend James Stewart at the Academy Awards just weeks before his passing. On May 13, 1961, at his home in Beverly Hills, California, Gary Cooper passed away peacefully of cancer at the age of 60. Initially buried in Los Angeles, his remains were exhumed in 1974 by his family and reinterred at Sacred Heart Cemetery in New York, allowing him to rest under a natural monument that reflected his lifelong love for the rugged beauty of the earth. Today, he rests in the quiet, shaded soil of Long Island, far from the busy movie sets, the dusty western streets of High Noon, and the physical limitations of his final years. The gentle, legendary hero of the silver screen has finally found absolute tranquil rest. Charles Bronson. Within the peaceful, rustic, and green-sloped grounds of Brownsville Cemetery in West Windsor, Vermont, resting in the quiet, shaded valley near his beloved holiday farm, there lies a resting place wrapped in absolute gentle silence. This serene country cemetery is the final home of Charles Dennis Buczynski, universally known to the world as Charles Bronson, the legendary tough guy and ultimate action hero of the 1970s and 80s. The deep stillness surrounding his gravesite stands as a solemn monument to a man whose rugged build, intense gaze, and quiet strength dominated global action cinema, but who chose the quiet, peaceful life of a New England farmer over the glittering spotlight of stardom. Born Charles Dennis Buczynski in Ehrenfeld, Pennsylvania in 1921 into a poor Lithuanian coal mining family, he worked in the mines from a young age and served as a decorated B-29 tail gunner in World War II before pursuing acting. He achieved international, monumental superstardom, commanding the screen in classic masterpieces like The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, and The Dirty Dozen. He immortalized himself as the mysterious, harmonica-playing Avenger in Sergio Leone's Western masterpiece Once Upon a Time in the West, and as the controversial, self-reliant vigilante Paul Kersey in the massive Death Wish franchise, becoming one of the most successful and popular action stars in the world. But behind his silent, tough guy screen image lay a deeply dedicated, artistic, and private family man. Charles was a highly talented painter and writer who preferred the quiet, rural life of his Vermont farm to the busy publicity of Hollywood. Off-screen, he enjoyed a legendary, deeply loving marriage to actress Jill Ireland, collaborating with her on numerous films.
Following her tragic passing from cancer in 1990, he navigated his profound grief with a quiet, dignified resilience, always carrying himself with a gentle humility and a raw, independent strength that earned him the deep respect of colleagues of all generations. After a long, exceptionally active, and deeply respected life of 81 years, his journey came to a quiet, natural end. On August 30th, 2003, at the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, California, Charles Bronson passed away peacefully from pneumonia and complications of Alzheimer's disease. Following his wishes, he was returned to his beloved Vermont, laid to rest in a simple, quiet grave close to the farm where he had spent his happiest years. Today, he rests in the quiet peace of the Vermont hills, far from the busy movie sets of Bedford Falls, the roaring bomber engines of his military past, and the physical and mental limitations of his final days. The gentle, legendary tough guy of the silver screen has finally found absolute tranquil rest.
James Stewart.
Within the peaceful, green hills of Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, resting in the quiet, monumental Court of Remembrance, there lies a resting place wrapped in absolute gentle silence. This serene, stately sanctuary, where he rests next to his beloved wife, is the final home of James Maitland "Jimmy" Stewart, one of the most celebrated, successful, and phenomenally gifted actors in the history of cinema. The deep stillness surrounding his gravesite, where he was laid to rest with full military honors, stands as a solemn monument to a man whose hesitant drawl, honest charm, and moral integrity defined the ultimate everyman on the silver screen, but whose real-life bravery defended the world in its darkest hours. Born James Maitland Stewart in Indiana, Pennsylvania in 1908, he studied architecture before pursuing his passion for the stage and screen. He rose to international superstardom, winning the Academy Award for Best Actor for his brilliant performance in The Philadelphia Story and delivering legendary, complex performances in masterpieces like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window, and Vertigo, and his definitive, timeless portrayal of George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life. His lanky build and hesitant, honest voice became an enduring symbol of American decency. But his extraordinary legacy was also defined by his immense personal bravery and service off-screen. During World War II, at the absolute peak of his Hollywood fame, he enlisted in the United States Army Air Forces, bravely flying 20 combat missions over occupied Europe as a B-29 bomber pilot, eventually rising to the rank of Brigadier General, making him the highest-ranking actor in American military history. Off-screen, he was a deeply respected, generous man who enjoyed a legendary 44-year marriage to his wife, Gloria, carrying himself with a quiet humility, a sharp-witted wisdom, and an unwavering patriotism, respected by colleagues of all generations. After an exceptionally long, active, and deeply respected life of 81 years, his journey came to a quiet, natural end. On June 20th, 2007, at his home in Beverly Hills, California, James Stewart passed away peacefully of cardiac arrest. His passing was deeply mourned by veterans, filmmakers, and millions of fans worldwide who celebrated his historic life of artistry and service. Today, he rests in the quiet peace of Glendale, far from the busy movie sets of Bedford Falls, the roaring bomber engines of his military past, and the physical and mental limitations of his final days. The gentle, legendary master of the silver screen has finally found absolute tranquil rest. Eli Wallach. Within the quiet, creative atmosphere of New York City, where his 98-year journey began and ended, the memory of an actor who brought a refined intellect, a sharp charisma, and an incredible versatility to the stage and screen is preserved in absolute silence. Eli Wallach, a pioneering method actor and one of the most respected character stars in cinematic history, left behind a legacy defined by his unforgettable roles, his professional dedication, and his quiet warmth. The calm serenity of his memory stands as a monument to a man who spent his life performing with a gentle humility, always valuing artistic integrity above commercial fame. Born Eli Herschel Wallach in Brooklyn, New York in 1915, he studied theater and became one of the earliest and most accomplished members of the actor studio, mastering the craft of method acting alongside Marlon Brando and Marilyn Monroe. He achieved early Broadway success, winning a Tony Award in 1951 before transitioning to film. He went on to immortalize himself as the ruthless, charismatic Mexican bandit Calvera in The Magnificent Seven, and as the wild, scheming, but highly lovable Tuco in Sergio Leone's classic Western masterpiece, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. With his expressive features, sharp wit, and versatile character skills, Eli became a towering figure of the screen. But his prolific 60-year career was defined by his absolute professionalism and dedication to his peers. He appeared in dozens of films and television shows, including The Godfather Part 3 and The Holiday, always bringing a natural sincerity and depth to his roles. His immense contribution to the industry earned him an honorary Academy Award in 2010. Off-screen, he lived a quiet, deeply principled life, enjoying a legendary 66-year marriage to actress Ann Jackson, one of Hollywood's most enduring love stories. He remained a deeply humble, generous man who approached his fame with a quiet, grounded humor. After a long, rich, and deeply respected life of 86 years, his journey came to a quiet, natural end. On June 24, 2014, at his home in Manhattan, New York, Eli Wallach passed away peacefully of natural causes at the age of 98, surrounded by his family. His passing was quietly mourned by his colleagues and generations of film fans who remembered him as one of the last true giants of classical cinema. Today, he rests in the quiet peace of his home city, far from the busy western trails of Spain, the historic Broadway stages of his youth, and the physical limitations of his final days. The gentle, legendary master of the silver screen has finally found absolute tranquil rest.
Yul Brynner. Within the ancient, quiet stone ruins of the Saint-Michel-des-Bois-Aubry Abbey in Louzé, France, nestled inside a serene, historic monastic cemetery, there lies a resting place wrapped in absolute gentle silence. This quiet sanctuary is the final home of Yuli Borisovich Brynner, universally known to the world as Yul Brynner, the legendary king of Broadway and the silver screen. The deep stillness surrounding his gravesite stands as a solemn monument to a man whose intense gaze, powerful voice, and distinctive shaved head pioneered a unique style of Hollywood leading man, but whose life ended with a brave, historic message of selflessness. Born Yuli Borisovich Brynner in Vladivostok, Russia in 1920, he lived an adventurous youth in China and France before moving to the United States. He rose to international history-making superstardom, winning the Academy Award for Best Actor for his definitive, legendary performance as the King of Siam in The King and I, a role he played over 4,600 times on stage. He went on to command the screen as the arrogant, powerful pharaoh Ramesses II in The Ten Commandments, and the cool, black-clad leader of the gunslingers, Chris Adams, in the Western masterpiece The Magnificent Seven. But his extraordinary legacy was also defined by his absolute personal strength and his final heroic act. Yul was a multifaceted artist, renowned as a talented photographer, guitarist, and author who worked closely with the United Nations to support refugees worldwide. After being diagnosed with lung cancer, he faced his illness with immense bravery. In his final days, he used his strength to record a powerful, historic, anti-smoking public service announcement, which was broadcast posthumously, famously declaring, "Now that I'm gone, I tell you, don't smoke." His courageous warning saved countless lives and became one of the most memorable final testaments in pop culture history. On October 10, 1985, in New York City, Yul Brynner passed away peacefully of lung cancer at the age of 65. Following his wishes, his remains were cremated and his ashes were interred with deep respect in the quiet historic cemetery of the French Abbey in Louzé. Today, he rests in the quiet historic peace of Saint-Michel-des-Bois-Aubry, far from the busy Broadway theaters, the grand ancient sets of Egypt, and the physical struggles of his final years. The majestic, legendary king of the screen has finally found absolute tranquil rest. Lee Van Cleef.
Within the peaceful green hills of Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills of Los Angeles, California, resting inside the quiet court of remembrance, there lies a resting place wrapped in absolute gentle silence. This serene, monumental sanctuary is the final home of Clarence Leroy Van Cleef Jr., universally known to the world as Lee Van Cleef, the legendary cold-blooded antagonist of the Western screen. The deep stillness surrounding his final home, where he rests beside his family, stands as a solemn monument to a man whose hawk-like features, sharp eyes, and icy gaze dominated classic Western cinema, defining an entire era of filmmaking. Born Clarence Leroy Van Cleef Jr. in Somerville, New Jersey in 1925, he served decorated duty in the United States Navy during World War II before embarking on an acting career. He achieved international enduring fame as a prominent character actor in classic westerns like High Noon, before achieving global superstardom in Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns, playing the sophisticated, tragic Colonel Douglas Mortimer in For a Few Dollars More, and the ruthless, cold-blooded mercenary Angel Eyes, known to the world as the Bad, in the masterpiece The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But behind his cold, calculating screen persona lay a deeply resilient, quiet, and talented man. He faced immense personal and professional struggles, including a near-fatal 1958 car accident that fractured his kneecap and severely threatened his career. He showed great determination, fighting his way back to physical fitness and eventually finding a massive, highly successful second career in Europe. Off-screen, he was a deeply humble, quiet man who preferred the peace of his California home, painting and carpentry, to the glittering spotlight of stardom, always carrying himself with an unwavering professionalism. On December 16, 1989, at his home in Oxnard, California, Lee Van Cleef passed away suddenly of a heart attack at the age of 64. His passing was deeply mourned by his family, friends, and millions of fans worldwide who celebrated his incredible contribution to Western cinema. He was laid to rest with deep respect inside the Court of Remembrance. Today, he rests in the quiet peace of Hollywood Hills, far from the dusty, sun-scorched valleys of Sadler's Hill, the intense gunfights of his youth, and the physical limitations of his final years. The gentle, legendary master of the Western screen has finally found absolute tranquil rest. Jack Palance. Beneath the quiet coastal skies of Montecito, California, where his final days were spent in peaceful artistic retirement, the memory of an actor who brought a refined intellect, a deep, whispering voice, and intense physical presence to the screen is preserved in absolute silence. Jack Palance, an Academy Award-winning actor, professional boxer, and decorated World War II veteran, left behind a monumental legacy that spanned over 5 decades. The calm serenity of his final home stands as a solemn monument to a gentleman who chose a quiet life of painting, writing, and solitude over the glittering spotlight of stardom. Born Volodymyr Palahniuk in Latimer Mines, Pennsylvania in 1919 into a coal mining family, he became a professional heavyweight boxer before serving as a pilot in the United States Air Forces during World War II, where a bomber crash left him with his distinctive, craggy, and heavily scarred features. He rose to international prominence, earning consecutive Oscar nominations for his chilling performances in Sudden Fear and as the cold-blooded gunfighter Jack Wilson in the Western masterpiece Shane. With his towering build and low whispering voice, Jack became one of the most feared and respected antagonists in cinema history. But his extraordinary legacy was also defined by his incredible versatility and late-life comedic triumph. In 1991, at the age of 73, he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his brilliant performance as the tough old trail boss Curly Washburn in City Slickers, famously performing one-armed push-ups on stage during his acceptance speech to prove his physical fitness. Off-screen, Jack was a deeply private, gentle man who wrote poetry, published several books, spoke multiple languages, and lived a quiet, simple life on his ranch, approaching his immense fame with a quiet, grounded humor. After a long, exceptionally active, and deeply respected life of 87 years, his journey came to a quiet, natural end. On November 10, 2006, in Montecito, California, Jack Palance passed away peacefully of natural causes. His passing was deeply mourned by his family, friends, and millions of fans worldwide, who celebrated his incredible contribution to Western cinema. Following his wishes, his remains were cremated, and his ashes were returned to his loved ones. Today, he rests in the quiet, sun-drenched gardens of Montecito, far from the busy movie sets, the historic Western ranches of his youth, and the physical limitations of his final days. The gentle, legendary master of the silver screen has finally found absolute tranquil rest.